As a personal development coach, I work with people on understanding behaviour, understanding why we do the things we do, why we behave the way we do, our communication, our interaction with each other, with the world. Because when you begin to understand what it is that you do and why you do it, then you can start to change things. And in actual fact, it's the awareness of behaviour that creates the possibility for change. Because until you see it yourself, nothing's going to happen. People can tell you time and time again, but until you see it clearly, nothing's going to change. But as soon as you do, you're almost halfway there already. It's actually that awareness of your behaviour that changes things, shifts things. My concept? Well, I came to this work because I've always been interested in why it is that we do the things that we do. When I was younger, I had questions about grown-ups' behaviour. It didn't quite make sense to me. So I had questions, and one day I met somebody who could answer the questions for me. I was about 31 at the time. 2000, I actually met him in 1997, and then I started working with him very closely in 2000. And he was a psychotherapist, and he had answers to my questions. And I saw him at work, and the way he was able to gain insight into people's behaviour fascinated me. And it seemed that he had skills that other people that I'd met didn't have. And I said to him one day, "How do you do what you do?" He said, "It's easy, I'll show you." And for the next 4 years, that's exactly what he did. And for the whole time I was working with him, and it was a very intense time for me, especially towards the end. But for the whole time I was there, I kept a detailed journal. And that was probably, more than anything, I think, after his influence, it was the writing of the journal that brought power to my own personal development. My book is a collection of my journal posts, my writings from my training time, together with updated pieces that I wrote 11 years later. And it really does just chart the progress that I made from start to finish, and the work that I continue to do. And it also outlines many of the fundamentals of the personal development process. It reads like a story. You can read it cover to cover as my story, or the story of a young man who's working on himself. But you can also just delve into it at random, open it wherever you like, because the pieces are fairly short. They're really only half a page long. And I've tried to make sure that every page can be read just on its own, that there's always something for you to take from what you're reading. The Tuesday seminars that I do are an extension of my experience with the writing. So for me personally, it's an opportunity to deepen my knowledge of my subject material, but it's also a chance to reach an audience in a different format to the writing. So what we do, we come together every Tuesday for 2 hours. I choose a topic, give my experience on that particular topic, but also invite a dialogue, a discussion from people, because the people who come to the seminars, they're interested in the subject, so they have their own experiences. And it's always interesting because there's always an opportunity for every one of us, me included, to make a connection with whatever anybody else is saying. Should everybody strive for an ideal self? It's a good question. Whenever I hear that kind of question, it always makes me feel as though that particular person's putting themselves under pressure. It's always easy to put yourself under pressure when you think of an ideal self. And very often, people look far too far down the line and become frustrated because they're only looking at the goal rather than looking at the progress they've made day by day. How would I advise you to drop your expectations? It has to do with awareness, because very often with these elements of behaviour, we don't realise we're doing it because we're on automatic pilot much of the time. Because we've been doing things the way we've been doing them for many, many years, we don't even realise we're doing them. So the first one is to realise that you have an expectation. And then, if you understand the consequences of having expectations, so follow that next experience that you have of expectations, follow it through to the end and see what happens. And you'll see that, well, if your expectations were met, great. That's wonderful, that's a nice experience. But they weren't met because you had expectations. They were met because you did the effort, you made the effort, you did the work. Your expectations make no difference to the goal or to the result. But if your expectations are not met, there's likely to be disappointment or frustration. So if you know that happens, why would you then have expectations the next time around? If I were to give people one piece of advice, it would be to take 5 minutes at the end of each day, reflect, write things down, and then you'll begin to see the patterns. And as soon as you start to see the patterns, you'll know what to do.